Okay, this one's hard for me to believe personally, but this is going to be the last pre-launched Nintendo Switch 2 video you see on this channel, period. We will officially be in the next generation Nintendo hardware cycle from here, and lots of exciting content to come, primarily focusing on the games and any updates related to the system as we find them out. But in our last pre-launch video, we do have a whole host of different updates that are worth talking about. The Nvidia CEO making some very bold remarks in regards to the technology that is inside the Switch 2. We now have the official word from Nintendo themselves on how they are handling the pre-review unit situation for media, and that is essentially just the confirmation that essentially nobody, established in the press or not, got any kind of dedicated review unit with dedicated review copies of games or anything like that. And we did actually get a pretty big Mario Kart World media blowout where we learned a lot of new details about that game, but I want to talk about this review thing as a whole, the good and the bad of it, and also a big dive into what we saw in terms of new features for Mario Kart World that we will be able to play and experience very soon now. We also have some interesting confirmation that while many Nintendo Switch games will need that performance patch to essentially run and perform better on the Switch 2 to take advantage of the full horsepower, there is still some reason to believe that your Switch 1 games that maybe don't have that free update available may run and load a little bit better. Then we have confirmation that the actual game cards this generation may be just a little bit slower than that of something like micro SD card express when it comes to load times and things in that regard. So we're going to break down all of this information. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to first kick off this conversation right over at My Nintendo News, where you can see the following headline that's being talked about, where it says, Nvidia CEO says Nintendo Switch 2 has the most advanced graphics ever in a mobile device. And you had, of course, this interview go live with the head CEO of Nvidia, and he actually went through and actually made quite a few different kind of, remember back comparisons to the Switch 1, because, of course, that was Mr. Iwata's vision, and shouted him out, which was a really cool thing to see. I'll have the actual link to this article so you can go through and watch the video if you so choose down below in the sources section. But kind of the takeaway here is obviously it's stuff like CEO speak to say we've achieved, an all-time new level of performance and this has never been done before. So you can discount that for what it's worth. But I do think that, like we've talked about with all of the various different reporting around the T239, it's a true custom chipset. It has elements of Ampere, which is primarily what it's based around, but also some elements from Lovelace in terms of how it's laid out. So we're talking between the 30 and 40 series Nvidia GPU cards, and this is something that is shrunk down into an all-in-one gaming device at a $450 retail price point. And when developers have tools like DLSS and they have custom tuning and custom optimization for the Nintendo Switch 2 version of all of their games, I think performance is going to be pretty impressive, at least as satisfactory for many of us out there, considering that we're able to undock this console and take it with us. So some reassuring comments from the Nvidia CEO as we look forward to the power level of Nintendo's next hardware at its launch. Then we have this, I would say, more divisive story online, which for me personally, in all honesty, it's better news for me as somebody who covers games on YouTube, that the media is not getting Nintendo Switch 2 units early compared to anybody else. And obviously the traditional legacy media is going to be upset about that. And there is some reason that you might want to know how some of these third-party games run in depth ahead of time before you go out to purchase them. And the reality is that we may just have to, if you're somebody who wants to be fully informed on that kind of stuff, wait a couple days past the launch window to pick up some of those third-party games. And I'll have my own videos going live on many of them where we talk about the in-depth features of what they offer and how they run and things like that. But you can see this write-up over at VGC where they say it's official. There are no Nintendo Switch 2 reviews. Here's what that means for us and you. Nintendo's decision to facilitate pre-launch Switch 2 reviews is disappointing news for everyone. This is from Andy Robinson over at VGC. It says, according to a company spokesperson, Nintendo decided not to send Switch 2 review units to press ahead of the launch because of important features and updates will only be available via a system update on the day of the console's official release on June 5th. It did not say what these updates entail or explain why the media wasn't offered the opportunity to review its launch games like Mario Kart World and Switch 2 Welcome Tour at its in-person events instead, like it did with previous console launches such as Wii. Neither did it explain why critics can't be trusted to cover products with knowledge that additional functionality will be patched later, as they're frequently used to. How and when game creators decide to distribute their review products is, of course, their prerogative, and the media has no right to early samples. Game coverage has also changed drastically over the past decade, with more priority given to post-release coverage of today's increasingly complex video games. The lack of coverage at or before release is bad for you, our readers. When Switch 2 arrives, there will have been no reviews of its software, no analysis of its hardware performance or battery life, or any testing of its key features such as game chat or how backwards compatible Switch 1 games perform. No hidden gems will be unearthed, and no potential dodgy ports highlighted before you have a chance of spending your hard-earned money. And when reviews do arrive, well after launch day, many critics will have been incentivized to rush through their games as quickly as possible, with Google and social media rewarding speed over quality. So basically the call out straight to Nintendo. A lot of the media wanted to obviously have early hands-on with the Switch 2. It is also just a crazy busy time it's going to be for anybody that covers this kind of gaming news cycle stuff, because we are right around the corner from Summer Game Fest. The day you're seeing this video go live, there is a Sony State of Play. We have Microsoft's big game showcase to look forward to over this upcoming weekend, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Rumors of an outstanding Nintendo Direct post launch of Switch 2 at some point in June. I'm now more expecting that to be in the latter half of June, but we'll keep you posted on that stuff. You get the idea. From a media perspective, they're like, hey, we need this thing early. We need this in our hands so we can get good, ample time to actually give consumers a heads up on what's going on here. That said, times are changing, and it is interesting that Nintendo doesn't feel the need to actually provide any early review units. And they're so confident in this console just selling either way that they're pretty much ignoring all of the early hands-on reviews and things that you would typically have to either promote or, you know, sway some decisions the other direction for people potentially looking to go out and pick up the console when they're on the fence for it. All in all, I think we've seen a lot of what to expect with this hardware. We did actually get some hands-on media reviews, or first impressions, I guess, more of a detailed, longer play session for Mario Kart World that we'll be covering in a second. So Nintendo kind of like half stepped into the early media coverage with some hand-picked partners that they went with this time, but they did not do the widespread, here's all of the stuff that's coming out early, and here's your extra week or two heads up to dive into it all so you get a head start on everybody else. They're literally just equal playing field. The product's going to drop, and then we're going to be able to all kind of talk about it at the same time. And it is interesting that they are still kind of teasing this idea that whatever the day one system firmware update is notable enough that it has multiple features that would be missing from the console. I don't know that we're really going to be able to expect any kind of big surprises from what we've seen featured already, but it is possible that things look a little bit different than the stuff we've seen so far, with one or two things that, you know, maybe are meaningful system level features that we just haven't seen advertised yet, and they're added in that system firmware. We did talk about, of course, that you can play Switch 2 exclusive games and or Switch 2 edition games that are purchased for the Switch 2 on the console. What is not playable, though, pre-firmware update, is actually backwards compatible Switch 1 games. And we also don't know what it's going to look like for those of us who are picking up the console at midnight tonight, because will that system upgrade be live by then? Or, as Nintendo has said, May 5th is when that update goes live. I would hope they would push that through to their servers the night of May 4th here in the, you know, a lot of the globe, and probably I would say it's going to go live like the morning of May 5th Japan time, which they are ahead of us by essentially almost a day, you know, or half a day or so. So I do think that by the time we get our console in the hands tonight, that it will have that update available, but still very interesting decision and wording here from Nintendo on why they are not providing media kits to people and review units ahead of time. Okay, now we have to dive into a lot of different cool updates around Mario Kart World, which I cannot believe I will be able to play this later on this evening when you are seeing this video. So Mario Kart World producer not ruling out 200cc mode in the future update. So basically, Here's the quote that we're referencing here. So when asked whether he plans to implement a higher 200cc difficulty like the one previously added to Mario Kart 8 post-launch, Yabuki stays mum. Some players are really happy with the addition of higher difficulty modes like this. However, that does not mean we're not going to consider adding engine sizes that are larger than 150cc to Mario Kart World. I'm afraid I can't say just yet. And for those of you hoping that maybe 200cc is baked into this game down the line in a future update, that does sound like a possibility. Also not confirmed, but I would say that in general, I'm expecting the content that we get on this game at launch to be it for a while, and then the next direct or two, maybe even into next year, we get that DLC roadmap announced. I don't think Nintendo's going to just stop this game. I mean, this is launching and kicking off the generation to the follow-up to the most successful console generation they've ever had. It is clearly an important franchise to them, and they're going to continue to add content and updates throughout the Nintendo Switch 2 life cycle. So I actually do think that 200cc is a likely thing that would come in an update, in addition to additional content like a booster course pass with multiple waves of new courses coming over, a drip feed cycle type of DLC situation. So from here, I do want to hop over to X, where you can see from stealth Mario Kart World UFO gameplay, and I'm gonna take my camera off screen for a little bit here. You have to deal with the Twitter compression, which isn't great, but you can actually see here, even from a full screen perspective, just what we have going on in terms of UFOs in Mario Kart World, because yes, that is something that, as the media hands-on footage has been revealed, this is actually something you can do. And what's cool is that it looks like you're actually covering a lot of ground pretty quick, because of course the UFO is up quite a bit higher in the air. And it looks like you're getting around a little bit quicker in a UFO than you are for other vehicles. And you're literally like sucking up cars and stuff from beneath into that UFO as you drive over them. So some interesting stuff I did not expect to see from Mario Kart World. We're still finding out a lot of new details about this game, and just look at how high you can ascend in the UFO here. So I do kind of think like this is a little bit of a fast travel type of situation. And continuing on in the new footage, we have another really nice detailed look at a new VS race portion of uninterrupted gameplay that we have just not seen up to this point in time. Now, of course, a lot of this stuff comes down to just being able to drive anywhere in Mario Kart World. And just like we saw some of that wave footage that is reminiscent of Wave Racer, it is a similar type of thing here, where you just, to see how much of the course is just water and how you traverse that, is really seamless. It's a really cool thing, because, obviously we had underwater sections in Mario Kart 8 and 8 Deluxe and things, but it never really was just part of the track where you were just for long stretches like this driving on top of water. This water a little bit less impressive than the other water we saw, because there were literal active waves that were creating ramps as you went along. But just some nice, more detailed look at what to expect here from this game, and kind of all the chaos with how many racers are on screen as well. We will just skip forward a little bit here for anything else kind of interesting that you might want to see. But, you have literally, the side of the water descending, and that obviously affecting the motion and you fighting against that water wave. And anyway, just really cool footage that dropped. I'll have all these sources linked in the description so you can go check them out in more detail. But we do also have a look at some more semi gameplay, this time just what it looks like to go on a total rampage and essentially drive through all the vehicles on screen and just demolish them. Crazy Taxi style, if you will, because that's just, for me, this is what kind of that reminds me of, is just like how you can drive totally recklessly and, literally just cause chaos on screen. So I thought that was a pretty fun little look at it. And then again, we get right back to a section of the wavy water where you just dive off of a bridge and you're just continuing to explore. Like free roam mode, that's going to be something that I'm actually probably the most excited to hop into, at least briefly. And besides Knockout Tour and some other stuff that I'm absolutely going to want to see. But free roam and just kind of seeing all the different stuff, kind of crazy here. And this is pointed out in this particular gameplay clip that, yeah, whenever it's raining sometimes in Mario Kart World, it's also raining item blocks. And this is some kind of storm that I guess just swept up all these different item blocks, and they are legitimately raining down. And it's also showing off here, of course, the ability to take pretty cool photos in photo mode and stuff like that. And that's all obviously a lot easier to share now too than it was previously, because it will actually be something that you will have automatically able to send over to your phone. Up to 100 screenshots and screen grabs, clips at a time is what we're hearing. So Mario Kart World almost here, and you know, all this preview footage just getting me that much more hyped to play the game here very soon. So from here we have some nice, I guess, confirmation. Now this is coming to us from a translated post. According to Nash Weedle, it is Nintendo commenting on this, and Nintendo confirms what we already knew. Switch 2 will improve the performance of Switch 1 games compatible with Switch 2 without a patch. Many games will be able to benefit from raw power and improve the gameplay experience and load times on Switch 2. And the screenshot he has in reference here, which when translated into Google, has the following, which is: you may notice faster loading times or smoother playback when playing compatible Nintendo Switch titles on the Nintendo Switch 2 console. Additionally, games listed below will receive free updates that you can download to take full advantage of the Switch 2 console. So Nintendo kind of saying it there in plain text. Not only will you be able to enjoy performance improvements on the games they've outlined with more notable upgrades like 4K 60 and stuff like that, like we're expecting a lot of the Switch 1 generation games to run with a performance patch, but actually some games are just going to do a lot better in the Nintendo Switch 2 with apparently no patch. Now, I'm expecting this to mainly hit games that have stuff like an unlocked frame rate, where it attempts to run the frame rate as high as it can in the base game code, and then the Nintendo Switch 2 has all that extra horsepower. It's probably going to kick it up to 60 FPS if it was even struggling to hit 30 before. I don't know how all these games were developed, but I'm hoping games like Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, Bayonetta 3, and a lot of games that just have chaos on screen all at once, maybe Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, you know, maybe they take advantage of this additional horsepower in a better way than we are expecting, even without an official patch outlined. Not to mention the fact that there is a high likelihood that many games will, over the course of time, get free performance upgrades, ones that don't add in a bunch of content or anything like that, but Nintendo will just go back through a lot of their first party, and then third parties will ultimately go back through some of their third party releases and just update them to take full advantage of the Switch's additional horsepower. And just on this conversation real quickly, because we watched the Pokemon video in yesterday's video, but I did want to show you guys again just a side-by-side comparison of legitimately how much better post-performance patch Scarlet and Violet look. Like, I'm actually excited to get into these games now and finish them because, I mean, look at the day and night difference of just legitimately how blurry and stuttering the frame rate is. And of course, you're going through multiple layers of compression as you're watching it here, but you can really see, I mean, a vast improvement in the frame rate, the draw distance, and just the level of detail that is in Scarlet and Violet. It took a long time. It shouldn't have taken a new console to run an acceptable level, but I'm personally pretty pumped to get through these games because the performance was actually a big downturn for me in terms of the enjoyment level, and now that will be a thing of the past. So good news on that front. Now we have kind of a brief update, and I don't think this is anything to freak out about, but it is worth knowing about. Nintendo Switch 2 game cards are apparently slower than micro SD express cards. It appears Nintendo Switch 2 game cards have lower access speeds than micro SD express cards. According to an IGN interview with CD Projekt Red about Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition, micro SD express cards have great access speeds, while Nintendo Switch 2 game cards are okay. The developer did not elaborate on how much faster micro SD express cards are compared to Switch 2 game cards. You'll have to wait for full teardown and comparison after launch. Okay, so the kind of exactly the last part here. So 2 months ago, Nintendo announced that game cards for Nintendo Switch have high access speeds in order to provide fast loading of high quality textures and assets. It's rumored that the high cost of this new high access speed technology brought about game key cards. So this is something that, as a physical collector, and I'm still going to be physical collecting this generation for anything that is a complete on cartridge experience. I am not doing the game key card thing. I'm just going to buy those digital. If you have a game key card situation and that's what you opt for, you're technically going to get a little bit better loading performance potentially. It may not be day and night. It may not even be by much at all, but at least according to developers like CD Projekt Red, they're saying essentially that the microSD Express card is just a quicker load time, or can load in textures and assets quicker than what a game card can. That is what Nintendo, of course, is like a game like I'm getting, like Mario Kart World or Cyberpunk 2077. Those are completely on cartridge. Now it's nice because I don't have to fill up any of my Nintendo Switch 2 storage to play those games. But at the same time, we do have a situation where there could potentially be a little bit of a performance variance, let's say, when it comes to the textures loading in off of the actual game card. And again, I don't think this is day and night. It's not a big difference, but the developers actually kind of expressed a little bit of concern there, saying they're okay to work with on the game cards on the load times. MicroSD Express is actually faster. So let me know in the comments down below where your hype levels are at as we are approaching the launch day of Nintendo Switch 2. What are your launch plans for this console? I will be live streaming later on tonight, so make sure you come back by the channel. 11 p.m. Central Time, that's going to be 12 a.m. Eastern Time, and then that will be 9 p.m. Pacific Time. However, I have to get the console, then come home and start live streaming. So depending on how long that Best Buy line looks like and how long it takes me to get through all of that, it might be closer to 11:30 or 12 a.m. Central Time, which would be 1 a.m. Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific. So anyway, you'll see notifications go out on the channel later to schedule a stream. Just feel free to come by and say hey and share some of the hype tonight if you do decide to do so. And so it will be a late night with a lot of extra videos and coverage to come. So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.